Welcome to Beyond the Batter's Box podcast. I am your special main host today, Terry Phillips. We have relegated, we'll say, Nick to the guest seat today. He's joined by Logan Anderson and DeLeo, two college pitchers. This is a pretty special podcast we're having today. I'm really excited for a long period of time. Uh, each of our guests today have gone through multiple elbow procedures, and I think it's going to be a really cool experience to have each one talk about it because they all have like different perspectives. Logan currently going through his rehab for the second one. Asher still playing in college, and he has wrapped up his second rehab. And then Nick on the down end, he is the has been of the group.
Yep.
We're gonna let Nick take it away, kind of give his introduction, and then we'll go around the table here.
Well, to start, to fire me up to hear you say that, to start off the whole podcast, that was dope to hear somebody else say that for once. So thank you for that one. But yeah, to start, kind of give you like the Cliff Notes version of it. Basically, like had a good arm, not a great arm growing up. Like trained my ass off, but in terms of like the raw like capability, just wasn't like top to top. Until I really found like weighted balls. Kind of got on a program in my junior year of high school by a guy by the name of Chris Regas, who was in the Tigers org for a while. Great dude, still keep in touch with him today. So shout out Chris. Basically, never had arm pain, never had arm problems really at all. And then uh, never was really a pitcher either. I was like a catcher mainly. And then my senior year, by happenstance, like one of our pitchers in a like pregame bullpen had like frozen hand because I'm from South Dakota, so like it got freezing cold there all the time, and I don't know if frozen hand was a thing, but apparently it was. And he like couldn't feel his hand, so I was just like, screw it, I'll go back there. Ended up throwing like 6 shutout that night, and then from there I just kind of took off. Ended up becoming like an all-state pitcher my senior year, which is hilarious given that I was a catcher my entire life. Went to college still as a catcher though, like wasn't really I think I was going to pitch much. And then freshman year of college was COVID. So we got shut down in March. I was going to do a job on that summer anyway and ended up going earlier, I guess, having time to train early. Long story short, by the time my sophomore year of college rolled around, I was up to 92 and basically still climbing in velocity rather easily. Still not having arm pain. So, like, that was something that I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I was super strong as a kid. Like, I was on the football team. I was a powerlifter. Like, everything was like clear signs of like, all right, I'm not gonna have really serious arm pain because I just never like had it before in the past. And then November 8th of 2020 happened. I'll always remember this day. We had pulled onto the gym like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I remember doing a pull down, and I threw it, and before I even let go of the ball, like when I got to like max layback, I heard my elbow pop. And I remember like throwing it. It was the hardest throw of my life. Everybody went crazy. And I looked at my buddy. And I was like, I just broke my arm. He was like, No, you didn't. And basically, I found out I did. Weeks later, on an MRI, complete tear. Went through that rehab, which was its own process. Basically, I didn't have use, so like that was a red flag number one. And my PT was like anti-wet balls, anti-driving line, like everything that you wouldn't want to hear from PT, you heard it from mine. Uh, Long story short, ended up, you know, going through about, I think I was 6 or 7 months out before, I was still having arm pain, still like struggling to throw past 90 feet, and ended up having a different MRI or a separate MRI. Found out that they put my internal bracing backwards. The previous surgeon did, so that was its own issue. All the while, I'm like struggling, still trying to like play and everything. Had a second procedure, and kind of like that's when I realized, when I got out of that second procedure, like my arm felt totally different. Velocity never came back. I remember like pulling down one day my senior year of college, and I was like 91 barely, and I was like, geez, like that's so far off when I wanted to be. And I kind of just like relegated back to just being a catcher. But my career was like totally altered from that point. Like never really had significant playing time from there, just because like spent a few years in the training room, and then you miss a few years off and your arm never comes back. Like just wasn't in the cards. But I learned like a ton along the way. Like we'll talk about that later. But that's kind of like my story from there.
Logan.
Yeah, so I'm Logan Anderson. I'm 21 at this point, but my baseball journey started in high school. Before then, I didn't really know much about college baseball, the landscape of that, Division One, nothing in those regards. But I kind of fell in love with baseball around my junior year of high school and started training more seriously. I ended up committing JUCO and then just really worked my butt off my entire senior year and ended up having a pretty big jump in velocity, which allowed me to get an offer from UW, which I ended up taking right away. I was super excited for that. So I ended up going from like 85 my junior year to low 90s my senior year, and then my summer of senior year I hit like 95. Never had any arm pain in high school, just like Nick. Maybe had some like bicep tendonitis, but never elbow issues, never shoulder problems. Was really excited to start at UW and see what the landscape of college baseball was like. I had a great fall. Just really excited for the season. And then about a month into my freshman year freshman season was when I tore my elbow. It was in a bullpen, and I kind of just felt a little pop in there during a bullpen on one of my last pitches. Nothing crazy, no crazy pain, just felt like a little stretch, and threw another one and didn't feel right. So kind of called it for the day there and woke up the next day and could barely like bend my arm. It's a pretty common side effect, I guess. And from that point, we kind of rehabbed it for a couple weeks just to see what it was. We kind of thought it was a flexor issue. Ended up getting an MRI, and it was pretty inconclusive, which is a common thing for elbow injuries as well, as I've learned. And then I ended up doing more rehab for like 2 more months and still couldn't throw past 40 feet without pain. So we ended up just deciding to get Tommy John. I ended up getting the internal brace my first time around. So this was in June after my freshman year at UW. And then we got a new coaching staff. So I pretty much thought I was canned, I was done for. And luckily enough, they wanted to keep me. They wanted me to do my rehab there for that year, even though I'd be out. So I was really excited for that, just to be a part of the team during that rehab process. So yeah, I did my rehab at UW for my sophomore year, and it was kind of a rocky path. Like there was a lot of bumps in the road. It was probably 2 weeks out from throwing, and my arm just completely froze up. So we took like a week off and kind of built up for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then went into throwing just not very confident. Had pain on my first throws, and then the next probably 8 months was just a battle trying to get through that throwing progression, shutting down. I got a PRP somewhere in there, and just nothing was working. And then we went through the whole season just trying to rehab. I think I got out to like 120 feet at one point, and that was like the furthest I got, still having some pain. We got more MRIs, about like 2 or 3 more, and still super inconclusive. They said it looked fine. And then I ended up getting released from the team because we were just so uncertain about my arm at that point. And I made the decision to get another Tommy John surgery just because there was so much uncertainty up to this point. So pretty much the options were like shut down for a good 2 months, see what happens, try to build up for another 3 to 4 months. And if I don't have pain, then we just go through the throwing progression, see if I can come back, or just get surgery, do the full rehab for 5 months, throw, get through that whole progression, and then I'll have a for sure answer of what I can do in baseball, right? So that's the decision that I made. I got a full reconstruction with nerve transposition back in August. So we're coming up on like 11 months post-op that, and this rehab process has been night and day from the first one. It's been great. I've been throwing. I'm almost to a bullpen phase here, so super excited to get off the mound for the first time in over 2 years. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'll be playing JUCO ball at Edmonds CC next year, and super hyped to get back on the mound.
Well, Asher, take it away.
I'm Asher DeLeo. I'm 22, and Way back when, my sophomore summer during COVID, I saw a huge jump in velo. I was throwing pretty hard for my age. Like, I topped 89.7 actually end of the summer.
Oh yeah.
I remember that number.
That was not 90 for those keeping track.
Yep.
Not 90.
They're round up.
Don't round up here.
Yeah, so but I was a big kid, but I wasn't strong at all. I never lifted, and obviously it eventually came back to bite me. Like later, a few months later, late winter, early spring, I tore my UCL, and it took me a while to kind of accept that or realize that actually I didn't know anything. But the doctor recommended, or the MRI said I had a grade 2 tear, and the doctor recommended that I got either a PRP injection or surgery. And I mean, I was pretty uneducated, so the clear answer for me was PRP, obviously. 3-month recovery, whatnot. So no one told me I wasn't a permanent fix. It's pretty much a Band-Aid for those who don't know. And I got back up to my old velo, getting ready to pitch in my senior year. And 3 innings in my first start, I had to take myself out of the game because it just like something didn't feel right. And so I got another MRI. It didn't say anything on the MRI. The doctor said there was nothing there. So I got put on a throwing program for the summer. And it was just like pretty much just delaying the whole process. Like I knew deep down that something was wrong, but I just kind of wanted to trust it. So eventually, by the end of the summer, kind of made the decision that if I wanted to pursue baseball, or in order to like maintain my career, I guess surgery was the best option for me. So I got UCL repair, internal brace the day before our first team meeting at Everett CC, and rehab that over the fall and the winter, and then start throwing again January, February-ish, and like couldn't get to 90 feet without feeling pain. Like something wasn't right, and I didn't know if that was like part of the process. I was just very confused. I didn't know what to expect. So eventually I was just like I trusted my gut. Like I knew something wasn't right. So got an MRI, and the doctor that I was seeing pretty much said that he misjudged the overall strength of my original ligament, and I should have got full Tommy John. So I needed another Tommy John surgery. Got the full reconstruction. Took me a couple months to get that scheduled, and got that in May of my freshman year of college. Started the rehab process over again. All the time, or throughout this whole time, I was seeing a physical therapist that kind of, I don't know. He was a nice guy. He was a good guy, but he just didn't really know his stuff, I guess, for the athletic standpoint. I guess a lot of his customers were kind of elderly people. So started that rehab process again. Was slated to start throwing again late summer, early fall-ish, going into my sophomore year. But like around that time is when my flexor started to act up, and like I was in pain, like doing like everyday movements, just with my flexor, like finger flexion stuff, and I was just really confused. So a few months later in November, I decided to get another PRP shot, this time in the flexor, and I thought for some reason that would work since it was a tendon or a muscle instead of the ligament itself. But surprise, it didn't work. It took me about late January or early February to like realize I needed to like really do something about it. So one of my buddies started seeing Terry for his recent knee surgery. So that's when I started seeing Terry for the first time. And within a month, I started throwing again for the first time in pretty much 2 years, and went through another little roadblock with kind of pain, discomfort a little bit. So I decided to see a different doctor to kind of see what his thoughts were, and took me a long time, or a few months, to get that scheduled. So, but pretty much he said that like I just had just a bunch of scar tissue built up over all this time, and that was the discomfort that I was feeling. And that was honestly a really good thing for me to hear. It cleared a lot of like things up. Built a lot of trust back in myself and like the process of like this is kind of normal, well not normal, but like it's kind of how it's supposed to happen. So yeah, I started throwing again. First bullpen in November, first lives in January, and this is my junior year at Everett. And then I threw in my first game in May, not May 2nd. It was one of the May, or no, it was March. First game back in March. And yeah, that was amazing. It was a great experience. First time pitching in 3 years. And then only got 5 or so innings because I was pretty domed up, as you might have guessed, after 3 years of not pitching, but had a good summer. Got the opportunity to go play at Xavier University, and that's where I was at last year, and that's where I'm at now. So, yeah.
Thing I'd like to talk about with Asher with getting 5 innings at JUCO ball after not pitching for 3 years, and then 20 innings in summer ball, 25 innings. Goes to Xavier. Who was your first outing against?
Louisville.
Who was your second outing against?
Arkansas.
Who was your third outing against?
Oregon State.
So yeah, like if you ever want to talk to someone being baptized by fire, Asher's your guy.
Yeah.
Logan, so then like kind of first question about this. Let's talk about surgery number 1. What do you think that you were, what were your expectations going into it, and what do you think that with that you were the most off base about?
I kind of took a weird approach to the first one. I viewed it as an opportunity to like kind of hit the reset button and just like take a step away from baseball for a little bit and just do the rehab process, but like also find some stuff I like to do outside of baseball, which is easy to do when you're getting surgery like right before summer. So the weather's nice around here. I kind of just wanted to do other things, hiking and whatnot. I still did my rehab process and I wasn't like skipping days of that, but I wasn't like as dedicated to it as I am now for sure. So I definitely just viewed it as an opportunity to step away from baseball. I did not watch any baseball around that time. I literally just like separated myself and just focused on like being healthy overall with my body, with what I eat and whatnot, and my sleep, and then just doing the rehab process with Terry. I was with Terry for the first like 2 months of the summer, and then transitioned over to UW. And once that got rolling with UW, I kind of was like, okay, it's time to go. But then I was kind of steered in the wrong direction rehab wise, wasn't given the best stuff, kind of like Nick was talking about earlier with like the anti-drive line, anti-plyos, like just 3 sets of 12 of 15 different exercises, YTs, all that stuff. And I kind of went into it. It was like, oh, this is just like an easy process. Just listen to your PT, just do what they say, do those exercises, go through the motions, and you'll come back throwing harder than ever, because that's what everyone always says, right? That was my mindset going into it.
Logan brought up a good point there, where it's like, he changed kind of changed his process, and within that kind of had to take a break from like even watching baseball. Nick, did you like have an experience like that similar, where it's like your just relationship, from the first surgery, we'll say, where like you're just like your relationship with the game, your process, like how you were approaching things, did that change?
Yeah, kind of like what you talked about, like the whole notion that like you have TJ and then everybody just comes back throwing harder. Like I thought that too. I think my first words out of surgery were, "I'm going to throw 100 to the nurse," and like I'm not kidding. And I remember like just attacking the rehab. Like I was super like hard-headed, like intense guy of like I didn't care like what it was gonna take or whatever. I was gonna do it. So I remember ripping my rehab exercise at like whatever hour of the night. Like I'd wake up and do them just because I was just like so obsessed with it. And I remember thinking like there's no possible way I don't go back and throw harder. And I remember when it didn't happen, when I started to have like the pain indications and understanding, like my first throw, I was like this, and my rehab guy was like, good. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Over the top, baby.
Yeah, I was like a catapult. And kind of like having like serious doubts with like the people around me, along with like myself, just because like I didn't really know who to turn to at that point. And I was like, I I picked the wrong school to go to like it was not a conducive environment to like rehab. I remember I showed up and the team doc basically said I was medically cleared, which like yes, technically the ligament had healed for like my ability to write and read and do like basic human stuff, but in terms of like actually throwing a baseball 90 mile an hour again, was not prepared to do that, and like the coaches didn't get that. So like my relationship with baseball like really teetered, and I got like in like a really dark place at one point. That basically like I had to distance myself from baseball for a while. I actually quit for 2 weeks. So this was like some of the most people don't know, but like I left the place I was at, SEMO in Missouri, for like 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm done with baseball. Like, absolutely hate it. Wanted to like basically go like a totally different path. Lo and behold, those 2 weeks went by, and I was like, all right, I can't live without this thing. So I ended up like trying to come back, but yeah, the relationship with the game was definitely different, just because like I went from my whole life never being injured really, and then like all of a sudden like only being injured and like never playing. So it's like totally different. I don't want to say like it was easy for me like early on, because it wasn't necessarily like just sunshine and rainbows, but yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of adversity per se when it came to that. So it definitely like altered my perspective on things.
Asher, how about you?
Yeah, just like I never grew up with any arm pain or anything, so I kind of like had the notion that like surgery was kind of just a bad thing. I don't know, like especially with how young I was. So I like baseball was always like an outlet for me. Like it was never my whole life per se, but I feel like once I got surgery, it kind of became my whole life. Like it was just everything. Like my entire like life's motivation was like just towards getting healthy again. And I didn't really have a hard time watching baseball like per se. I loved watching MLB and all that still, but maybe like watching college ball was pretty hard for me because it was just like I was watching those guys and just being like, that could be me. I don't know. But yeah, was there another part to the
No,
question?
that was it. That's mostly it. So interesting if you guys have been kind of paying close attention, especially when we're comparing like Asher and Logan situations. Like we got two ends of the spectrum of Asher was kind of had it from the get go at a younger age. You had a bump in velo sophomore year, but as you didn't have to put a lot of work in the weight room. And then Logan, where it's like didn't really have it at a younger age, and like put a ton of work in the weight room, and then end up having your bump in velo. So we got like two paths that kind of end up in like the same results. What when you guys each hear like stuff like that, you hear people saying you got hurt because of this or XYZ. What are your thoughts of like, yeah, is that because of like the way I was going, or is it like was it just going to bound me up like end up that way, or what are your thoughts when you hear something say like this is like why it happened for you? How about you? We'll go with you first, Asher.
Um, I, I don't know. I don't really pay much attention to what other people say. To be honest, I kind of know that I got hurt because I wasn't like lifting or I wasn't strong enough to support the pressure that I was putting on my elbow, obviously, with the velocity that I had from a young age. And along with that, like mechanics, that's another talk or story, I guess. But like my hat used to fall off every single pitch. So something's probably wrong about that somewhere in the kinetic chain. But yeah, I feel like it's just a bunch of things, bunch of factors, like different cases can lead to the same result, in my opinion.
What about you, Logan?
Totally. I mean, I had coaches that told me after I injured my arm, it was like, you do too much. You're always in the weight room. You're just doing way too much. And that kind of led to my approach of my first surgery, where it was like, okay, I need to separate from baseball, like take my time, just do what the PT says. And that ended up coming back to bite me later on, just because I was so neglectful in the first surgery. But like, yes, before that first injury, like before I tore my elbow, I definitely was doing too much, but it wasn't necessarily too much. It was just like how I was spacing it out and the workload management. And when you don't have a proper understanding of that, and you're trying to add a slider, do plyo velo days, long toss, and body build at the same time, like yeah, you're setting yourself up for fatigue in that area around the elbow, just overall for fatigue of the body. And then another thing as well is just the stresses of life is something I've learned actually play a huge role in the equation as well. Like actual stressors at school and relationships and everything, and playing a role in the fatigue of your body. So all those added up, yes, like I was going way too hard, and that probably contributed to why it tore it. So having that guidance and learning that the process of managing all that has been a process over the last 2 years, which I feel really confident in. And now it's like, how can we communicate that to other players, that so they don't have to go through that process to learn how to manage their workload.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there of like you were doing it all, and not just from like a physical, not just from like a physical perspective, but also you were doing it all when like stress was like amped up too. Um, what would you say, for an athlete that like feels like they need to do it, feels like they need to do it all. They like my slider sucks. I need to get that better. But also like I saw this workout on TikTok that I need to do because I'm like also very weak. But also too, like I'm doing this and I'm playing for my travel ball team and we're going to I have a kid right now going to Houston this weekend, which I don't understand why teams leave Seattle in the summertime to go play by themselves. But that's neither here and there. But like again, it's all this stuff in the pot. What would you say to an athlete who feels like they just need to put the foot on the gas like nonstop to get to the point where like you are from like an athletic perspective?
Just know that it's not going to happen overnight, no matter what you do. Like if you're in the gym 6 days a week, 7 days a week, it's actually going to do more harm than good to your body. It's not going to progress if you're in the gym more. If you're doing 2 workouts a day for 7 days a week, like that just doesn't work like that. You need rest, and rest is where you actually build. You need to create that adaptation, that put that stress on your arm, but then let it rest, recover, and that's how you're going to move the needle. It's like it's never going to be a linear like slope either. Like you're going to have down days, and if you just like push through it and push really hard, then those spikes down are just going to go even further down.
Mm-hmm.
So just managing it all and like talking with someone that knows what they're doing, that's been through the process, or a professional that understands it, because it does just take experience and time to learn to manage those workloads. So talking with someone more experienced to help you build a more holistic plan of like all aspects of training is a much better approach than just trying to pick and choose things off TikTok and Instagram and what your friends say and what you see these pitching coaches doing. Like you got to have a whole plan that works together, not just piecing things together on your own.
It's time we're going to take a break to bring a message from our sponsors, Phillips Rehab, phillipsrehab.com. Can't reach a health season yet. Look us up online. Sorry, guys. Going to move on to surgery number 2. Nick, when the time came where you realized that you needed your second surgery, what was going through your head? What were you feeling? Embarrassed, depressed, angry, all the above? What were kind of the peak emotions that you were feeling during that?
This is a funny story. I'm not going to say all of it because there's some legal implications involved. But yeah, basically my second doctor, or my first doctor I went after, like I said, I was a pretty intense guy, so I wasn't going to take anything lightly, especially that. So yeah, we had some issues there. I was really, really pissed off. Like, you want to talk about like a man possessed, like that was that. His PA too. But anyway, also like really depressed too, because I knew that like having that second surgery was going to cost me another year, which meant that I wasn't going to be, healthy per se until maybe my senior year of college, and my freshman year was COVID, which obviously we played like 20 games a year. So I looked at potentially, wasting 3 years of my college experience in life, just going in and out of the training room. So that was something that was like, it took me a lot to really like come to grips with. And like I said, like there was a moment there where I gave up for 2 weeks, just because, didn't want to go through that again. I didn't know if I could go through that again. And I wasn't even sure if it was going to work because my faith in basically the surgical process had dwindled substantially from the first doc. But I had some really good people around me the second time. You were one of them. Fun fact: summer of 2021 at Driveline, Terry had me do some like weird nerve glide with my elbow, and that was the first time I hadn't had pain. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, like we're back." But I hadn't even done baseball yet, so like we weren't really.
We were not, in fact. Yeah.
But I had like a lot of good people around my second time, and like the doctor I had the second time was like a former Mets doc, and he was super cool, Dr. Baumgartner. He was like hilarious. I remember him putting my construct injection in me the first time or the second time. And I remember like, I'm laying on the table or whatever, and he's, it's like needles like this big, and I'm like not the biggest fan of needles. He was like talking to me and everything, and all of a sudden he just like jams in my elbow, and I was like, "Jeez!" I'm like grabbing on the table. So yeah, he was really cool. Like I was really cool to have him. And then like Dr. Jimmy Andrews too also like played a part in it because he knew Dr. Baumgartner as well. So like having those two guys like at my back basically was really good to have. And that kind of like got me, feeling better about myself and like about the process and like having hope for the process in general. So that was something that, kind of like Logan talked about like the peaks and valleys. Like I was in like the lowest of lows one point, and then like we kind of got back to feeling like even keel. And that was kind of like what my process was like.
Asher, what were you feeling on that time came to get that second surgery?
I'd say all of the above of what you mentioned earlier. It was like shock. I wasn't expecting it to be torn again, honestly. Like after I got the MRI, I was just getting that as just like a safeguard, like kind of just to reassure myself that it was fine, but it ended up not being fine. They said my UCL was mush, in fact. But
that's not an actual medical term for those out there.
But yeah, it was just like pretty depressing. Really became a pretty dark time. Like I had some other stuff going on with relationships, and just like I considered quitting baseball, ended up making the decision not to, and just pushing forward. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. How about you, Logan?
Honestly, I was pretty excited at that point. Like it was a relief, which was obviously it was very hard to like decide to go through surgery. I'd already missed 2 full seasons of baseball, and then I was basically signing up to miss a third. But I didn't really see any other options at that point. It was like I needed a for sure answer on like what's going to get me healthy, and this was kind of like get the surgery, do the rehab, and if it doesn't work out, then it's not meant to be. But like just put your all into it. And I knew what I did wrong the first time. Like I knew what I had to do to actually have a successful rehab process the second time. And I kind of created a whole plan and a huge just game plan for this second surgery. And I really dedicated everything to it and working with the best people, getting with Terry, doing it right from the very first day of surgery and seeing it through all the way to the end and not like disconnecting myself from baseball. I really dove into the process, decided to document it all and post it on social media. So that really helped me stay connected. And I just viewed it as an opportunity to like just get back into the gym, really fall in love with the process again, like I did my senior year of baseball, and where I made those huge jumps in velocity, just like putting time in the gym, on the field. And that's exactly what I did. Fell in love with the process again, and now it's all paid off. So yeah.
Nice. All right, so we get to the point where you guys have all, you're at the return to throw process second time. Obviously, for each of you, the first time didn't go quite as planned. So Asher, like talk about us about like when we're going through that throwing process second time. Like, what's your confidence level time 2 versus time 1, and how much did you feel like you were walking on eggshells, or did you not feel like that way?
I felt a lot more trusting in the process the second time around. Big part of it was because I was seeing you, honestly. And so, yeah, I had a lot more trust in that. It kind of felt like I was walking on eggshells a little bit, but like I don't know. I trusted the work that I was putting in at the time. I trusted the experience that I went through before, and yeah. I might have some more once I get some time to think about it.
What about you, Logan?
Yeah, I think just the month leading up to my first throw was like a lot more thought out, and I really prepared my body, my arm, along with Terry's help and my other throwing coach's help. We just really prepared my arm to have that first day be a success, like get that arm comfortable with the motion, the throwing motion, something that I didn't do the first time. So the first time I threw a ball, it was like that's the first time my arm had moved like that in months. Where this time I was doing dry reps, throwing med balls, and all that. So when it actually came time to throw, I felt confident that my arm could move that way, and having pain-free throws the first day was such a relief. Like that was just night and day difference. And then we were just cruising from there on. Obviously, I've had setbacks on this second surgery, and those are scary to navigate. I had a whole month of pain. I would throw from 60 feet with pain, even in the second surgery, but like managing that and not getting in your head and just realizing that it's not your UCL, and like there's other factors that are a part of the surgery equation, like the ulnar nerve, the flexor, and all that has really helped me. And once I got over that first month of pain, like anything that pops up from there on, I know that I've gone through it before and came through it with pain-free throwing, and it all worked out. So like I can do it again and again and again, no matter how many setbacks there's going to be. There's always going to be another pain-free day in front of me. So
What do you got?
I think mine was so my PT the first time was like I said, I was like a super strong guy, so like I was progressing through stuff very quickly, and getting me start going 10 weeks out, which for those who don't know, like getting a full TJ, it's like the absolute bare minimum was 4 months, and that even then that's pushing it. So the second time around, like had more guidance. I also had more of a understanding, or I guess like a bigger sack on me, if you will. Like I was willing to tell people to like shut the hell up when they would try to like rush me through some stuff, or like try and get me to skip things. Like that was a big thing the first time, is having people tell me, oh, I don't need to do my J bands, I don't need to do my like shoulder tube stuff, and like being able just the second time to be like, all right, like, let me go through my process. Um, I think like the big thing though for me that was kind of just like eye opening was like getting past like the beginning point and being able to like throw a long toss again. That was a really good feeling, because you can always throw 90 feet, but like being able to actually throw the ball over the center field fence was something that I was like, this is great. It just never translated back to when I would like try and compress, which I never understood. Obviously there's some sequencing problems there, but I could never figure that out. But at least like I kind of at least got peace with myself, like, all right, my arm's healthy enough to go throw a ball 350 feet again in the air. Like I just can't figure it out down the mound. So that was much more relieving to me, like the second time, because the first time like I couldn't even throw a ball 120 feet, like Logan was saying, at least without pain. And it was super janky too. Like I could tell my motion. I was changing things left and right and trying to do my best to get it there without pain. So the second time around, that was a lot more relieving to be able to feel that way.
Try to figure out how to ask this question without blowing smoke on my own ass here, but
Just blow. We've all done
okay.
it for you.
Well, not everyone is Phillips guys, but no. But I mean, each of you have already kind of identified like you had a rehab process that was that was good versus not good. What would you say for athletes who it's and I really like struggle with like telling the athletes myself sometimes like figure how to figure this out, but what would you say to an athlete who's like not sure if the rehab provider who they're working with is the right person for them? What would you say to look for as far as like this is what will help you identify if like this is the right person for you, or this is some, or if like you need to go someone else? Nick, we'll start with you on that.
Very tough question, but in like a broad landscape of it, be really curious with stuff. Like I was a guy who was super curious when I was a kid. It got me in trouble at times because like I just didn't trust anybody. And I eventually, enough research online, enough talking to people, like you get enough second opinions, and they start all saying the same thing. You start kind of getting that confidence of trusting one individual. That was kind of like the thing that really like centered me was basically talking like a whole bunch of people, like you, Dr. Andrews, Dr. Baumgartner. There were some other PTs that I came across along the way that all were kind of saying like the same thing, and not just showing me the classic Mike Reimold study, which is what the first guy did. I like be super curious, like do some research yourself. Don't just be like a sheep or cattle and do whatever like somebody tells you to do. Like be able to be independent and have some understanding of like the actual process itself. So that way when somebody does tell you something, you kind of at least have an understanding of how things work and you're not just blindly following them.
What do you got, Logan?
I would say look at what they've done in the past, the professionals that you're working with, like the successes that they've had. Have they done a lot of TJ rehabs? Are they experienced in the baseball field? Because there's a lot of guys that will just do they'll like want to do your rehab, but it's like they're going to learn along the way, and that is not someone you want to be working with. You want someone that's confident, that knows exactly what to do, that's not handing you a piece of paper and having you do that for 4 weeks. You want like a customized plan that's going to adapt to your needs. So things are going to pop up along the way during your rehab, and you need someone that knows how to address it right away when it happens, rather than just like guessing and trying things out. Obviously that's part of the process. You got to try things out, but like someone that's been through the process before with athletes will know a general like plan for what you're feeling. Yeah, that's probably what I'd.
How about you, Asher?
Yeah, my parents didn't grow up playing sports at all, so we were pretty uneducated, like as a whole or as a family, in the whole recovery process scheme of things. So I don't know. I would say the thing that connected me with Terry was seeing some of my buddies that were working with him and then seeing the results that they were getting. So I would just, I mean, you said don't be a sheep, but I would say like look at kind of past results of, I don't know, just do your research of like the guys that you're looking into going to see, like, especially if they're like sports specific, like someone that works with baseball guys or like Tommy John surgery, recovery, or whatever you're going through, like someone who's been through the process of that, and like that would help.
One thing, can I add on something real quick? I think it's obviously hard before you start working with someone to get the feel of that person, but like once you go through a rehab process, like working with Terry, I really feel like he cares about my process. Like it's on a personal level. Like it really matters to him that I come out pain-free and have a successful rehab. And if you don't get that feeling with the rehab person you're working with, it's probably not the right fit. And don't be afraid to like speak up and take charge, because it's your career and you can't let that be in someone else's hands. So like that's something I wish I did in my first rehab. I had a bad feeling about it, but I just was too afraid to speak up, and I just kind of waited it out and kept doing that stuff. But it would have been much more beneficial if I just spoke up, stopped working with someone, found someone new that actually like cared about my process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And kind of piggyback on Asher's point, which piggyback on Nick's point of like being a sheep. And I don't think like I wouldn't consider like I see my friends going to this person, they've had good results, being a sheep. That's like, okay, recognizing that I'm in a process right now that isn't working for me, and I have people that I trust and are in a similar situation. Obviously, like with your buddies, they're not exactly the same situation, but they're college athletes.
Yeah.
And then seeing that they're like having a good experience, I think that's a good that is more than reasonable enough experience to want to like try to start like seeking out like what they're doing. Would you guys all agree? Maybe not, but if anyone wants to elaborate, would you also agree that there's probably just an aspect too of like the feel you get from like the if the provider's not working for you versus they are working for you, like not necessarily like on the first visit or even within like 2 visits, but like there's probably an aspect like after a short period of time, like I don't think this is the right right one for me.
Yeah. Kind of combining this with like the past question you asked, like I remember I like I mentioned, there were a few coaches in my life that I trusted, like Colin Farmouth, Hunter Glasscock, and then Chris Regis were like my three like training specific ones. I had like other ones that weren't necessarily specific to like the training aspect of it, but like those three, like the first like few that I like really trusted. And then like my senior high school, I like kind of started finding out what Driveline was. This was like 2018, 2019. And I like held Driveline up on a pedestal. Like Driveline was like Jesus for all I was concerned. And I remember like walking in that building. I didn't know who you were, but I just knew that like you were attached to Driveline. And I was just like, all right, like I'm gonna blindly trust whatever these guys tell me, because like these guys are putting out stuff that nobody else is really doing and nobody else is really willing to experiment on. And that like initial buy-in, I think, kind of, even if you were to mess up, you were to have like a larger margin of error, for lack of a better phrase. And I think that was like something that, as I got further and further along, and I started to see like, okay, like this was clearly working. I didn't have any pain. That was like biggest problem. Number one, I started throwing. That was number two. That was kind of the thing for me. That was like, okay, yeah, like this is working. Flip side of it, I think if you have a scenario where, you kind of like what Logan talked about, like you start to do the piece of paper 3 or 4 weeks out at a time. It's the same stuff. You're not really adapting anything. You're telling the PT something, and he's not really like going with it or modifying anything because of it. He's not really taking any of the information you're telling him and like changing the program that you're on because of it. I think that would be kind of like an indication that you kind of either need to have that conversation with the PT or move on, because if he's just going to give you some cookie cutter thing that is, been around since 1975 or whatever, probably is a good indication that like you need to go find somebody else.
Logan or Asher, anything?
Totally agree with that.
Yep. Yeah. Like going back to the point where like when I started seeing Terry, it just felt like he like actually cared about me personally and like my career from the get go. And I saw more results seeing him for 1 month than I did from the other PT in the 2 years that I was seeing them. And the other place, it just felt like I was getting in, getting out. Like I look around and to see like the other patients, and none of them really played sports or anything. So that was probably a red flag, or definitely a red flag. But yeah, I mean, from the results standpoint, that's a big thing.
I don't know if Asher ever remembers, but I definitely had this experience with like a lot of your teammates of like, because I was when we first started working, I was at a general outpatient clinic, and our throwing wall was unfortunately seated right next to a recumbent bike. So we would have like Asher just ripping, and like, I mean, Jack Berg was also like another guy, like the most intense, like throwing med balls I've ever seen in my life. But just like these college level athletes, like throwing med balls 5 feet away from a lane every recumbent bike, and it just like would just explode off the wall. And I'm like, I got it. I need to get my own business. But so each of you, Asher, we'll start with you. Go back in time. Anything you would do different with like your process?
Yeah, I would do more research myself, for sure. Try to get more educated with the process before I go into it. Sorry, my mind's kind of blanking right here.
You're good.
Oh, you
You're good. Yeah.
I would say just like all aspects of your life need to kind of change a little bit. You need to have focus on recovery as a whole. Don't neglect your sleep, nutrition, supplements. Like, do your own research. Like Asher said, like there's so many tools out there that you can use to your advantage, and like optimize everything to your ability. If you want to have an elite comeback, you got to do elite things. So optimizing your sleep, nutrition, supplements, and then just do your research with the people that you're working with. Don't trust everything that someone tells you right away. Really ask around, ask people who have worked with that person previously, and then just like make sure, for TJ specifically, make sure that you have a really smooth process leading into the throwing. That was something that was a huge game changer for me, like having a solid month of preparation. And if that means delaying your throwing date a little bit to allow your arm to heal a little bit more and then have that transition time, it's 100% worth it to do the dry reps, the med balls, all that stuff. Make sure you're fully back strength wise before you actually make those first throws. You'll have a lot smoother process, and you'll thank yourself later for doing that.
Yeah, like the cliche saying of like your feet are like that would kind of be like what I would do differently. I know that's kind of different than what you probably looked before, but like looking back, like I did everything that I possibly could have that was in my control basically. And I like the one thing I didn't do was basically like enjoy the moment. Like growing up, I had a lot of like cool people. Like Dylan Schieffer is one of them. Zach was another. Um, and then like three guys I mentioned previously on like Dave Hopper. A lot of guys that like were really like there for me and like cared about me like as a person. And I always was looking for like the next step. Like the goal was always to get to high level D1 baseball and I get drafted, and I kind of like lost sight of everything else along the way. I didn't really like enjoy it as much as I wish I would have. Because like growing up, like there's a lot of cool experiences too. But I was always just like focused on like the next goal, the next goal, and the next goal, and eventually like I realized that I was 23, 24 and done basically. Like I wish I would have like enjoyed the moment more because like you don't really know like when it's gonna stop being good, and like for me like that happened rather quickly. So basically, living more in the moment and like understanding that what we have now isn't gonna be forever, and I wish I would have enjoyed that more.
All right, last question for each of you. Asher, we'll go first with you, but it'll be the same question for all of you. What has this process taught you, about yourself, about rehab, about life in general, anything that like you wouldn't have gotten a chance to learn, if you didn't go through the process?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really grateful that the process happened, especially like early on in my life, to where I could like learn something like this like so early and be able to carry it through for the rest of my life. Like just about perseverance and just like so many just like great life lessons that like a lot of people don't get to learn so early in their life. I keep saying that, but
Yeah, no, for sure.
it's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a hard question for me because there's just so many things, so many aspects that I've come out of this 2 year setback with. Like first of all, I started my Instagram page and gotten into the coaching world with all the knowledge that I've gained through this process. I'm really grateful for that. It's opened a lot of doors for me. Working an internship this summer, coaching baseball athletes, something I never even considered before these injuries. And then just on the personal level, like the adversity, learning to handle adversity over the past 2 years and just kind of the mental side of it all. It just instills a lot of confidence in you when you go through something that hard and you just don't quit and keep pushing forward. I honestly just feel like anything that happens in my life from this point on, like I can handle it. If I can go through this for the past 2+ years and not quit and just put my head down and push forward and focus on the next day, like anything that's thrown at me in the future, I can carry over that skill that I've learned and just continue to never give up pretty much.
It gave me a really good perspective beyond the game because like for the longest time like baseball was like the only thing that I cared about, not the only thing I cared about, but like my sole identity. Basically like I was the baseball player, not everything else like I could have been or like ended up becoming. So it definitely like gave me some resolve almost of like it's okay to find something else besides baseball, and like I ended up doing that, and like obviously still working baseball, but different in the sense of like you're no longer an athlete. It gave me a good perspective too from like an athlete's perspective. Now that training athletes, being able to help them more so because like I've been through similar experiences that they are either going to go through or like have gone through already, which I think is something that's really uh, positive and something that gets overlooked in like the coaching aspect of things because in order to basically fully understand how or like what an athlete's going through, like you probably have to go through some of it yourself, right? Like I'm not saying you got to be a big leaguer by any chance, but being able to understand like the grind of being a student athlete, having to go to class, having to go to study hall, having to have 6-hour practices and weight room, and the swimming at 5 a.m. and whatever. Like all that stuff is something that is super relevant and is gonna give an athlete good insight too when they're going through a similar process.
Yeah, I'd say like over the past, or not past, but the 3 years where I was hurt, I learned so much more about myself, or probably the most about myself than I did my entire life. And like you grow up with baseball being such a big part of your identity, and then all of a sudden you're hurt for this long extended period of time, and then your identity becomes that you're hurt. It becomes your identity. So you kind of have to like figure out, or just like find different ways of life that bring meaning to you and purpose. And it just, I don't know.
You become so much more grateful too. Things in life like throwing, lifting, all that, when you're not able to do it for months at a time, and then you finally are able to do it again, like you just remember those times when you weren't able to do it, and how lucky you are to be able to, even if it's just a low day out to 60 feet, just to be able to throw that ball pain-free, and even stuff outside of that, like able to wash a dish and cook a meal without having to like pin it up against the wall or something. Oh my God, it's such a relief to be able to do that. You jump in the water and do some swimming and whatnot. Just enjoy life.
Right. Yeah, I remember for me the biggest thing was like, because I was a big milk drinker, like opening a thing of milk, like I'd have to like with my cast, I'd like wrangle it on the counter and like use my left hand, and obviously I don't do that anymore. So that was like something that I really like get a new perspective on was how lucky you're able to, how lucky you are to be able to do like the smallest things.
That's the last question I have. Any final words for our viewers?
You got something, Asher? I know you.
I don't know.
I think we guys covered it.
I mean,
I think like the one thing that I would say is basically, like don't feel like you're alone too, because like we all went through like unique situations too, where we probably thought like this is not happening to anybody else in the world, and in our like reality it is. I remember talking to one of the guys that I was close with, and he played minor league baseball for a large portion of his life. And he was telling me like every single guy that he knew had TJ had some different sign and symptom of it. Like for me, I could do literally everything except throw. Like I could hit, I could lift, like nothing caused pain except for the throwing portion, which is super weird. And then we had other people that basically everything caused pain, like opening a door caused pain, whatever the case may be. And like I think every scenario is different. So just because like you have something that is more rare than others, like don't feel like alone. Don't feel like you're going through like something that nobody else can help you with.
Yeah. Just adding to the mental side too. I think that's like the biggest overlooked part is guys just think about the physical side, the rehab, the workouts and all that, but the mental side is probably the biggest challenge. And comparison is the thief of joy. Like don't compare yourself to others. It's really easy to do that, but everyone's progression is going to be different, and if you compare yourself to others, it's just going to dome you up even more. And that's just probably the hardest part of the rehab is like staying out of your head, because you're going to have times where it hurts for extended periods of times, weeks, months, and that's just part of the process. Some guys might not have that, but if you do have that, you can come out of it on the other side. But if you just get too low or too high when things are going good, it's going to cause a big swing in mood, and you're just going to be all over the place and get in deep holes. So.
Yeah. No matter how hard it gets, like this is a great life lesson, but like you just kind of have to trust the process, as cliche as it is, but like know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and like recovery and life, like it's not linear, right? Like you have your ups and downs. You can't get too high and too low. Like
the comparison aspect was really big, because like I was always caught up in like, oh, I got to be faster recovery process than X, or I got to do this because Y did this. And like I remember Bryce Kreider back in like 2021, he was going to do like something similar with his TJ. He told me like, look, your elbow's never going to feel the same again, and like that's okay. And like that was like the first like aspect of my like mental process I like kind of hit, and was like, okay, like that's okay if my elbow like to still be clicking, or like to still feel like some type of weird like twinge or whatever. Like it's something that like it's not gonna be the exact same pre-surgery, and like that's okay.
yeah.
All right. I think that concludes it for today. This is the Beyond the Batter's Box podcast. I'm your one-time main host.
Oh, don't start. You might have
I'm Terry Phillips. Thanks to special guest Nick Kemper, Logan Anderson, Asher DeLeo. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.